great wherever you are. And if you feel down, don't worry about it because this live is supposed to lift you up. So today, my only requirement is for all of us, number one, to be very center and focus. Number two, I want us to be very engaging today because in order for me to really see where is the issue, what parts are you guys don't get or you get, or if you're blocked in some areas in your life, where it is, I need you all to be very engaging. Namaste and welcome. Okay, so the topic that I chose for today is what if you had access to your subconscious mind? Can you guys imagine that? You often hear from me, and you probably know this by now, that more than 95% of everything that we do, the way we behave, the way we feel, it's subconscious, right? And we all know by now that there are so many hidden agendas in our subconscious mind. We are very aware that we have a lot of self sabotaging patterns, yet we don't know why we cannot stop self sabotaging our lives. So, when we know that more than 95% of what we do is coming from subconscious mind, and when we're aware that 15 to 20 seconds before you and I think or assume that we're making a decision, subconscious mind has already made that decision for us. So basically, we have a delay of 15 to 20 seconds to see, oh, what happens, right? We all agree till now that everything that we do is subconscious. Subconscious, in a way, means out of our control. So just the fact that we know that everything that we do is subconscious and we don't have any control over it, how does that make you feel? To me, this feels empowering. And the reason I chose this topic today, what happened if I had access to my subconscious mind, is because you and I get some tips to know how to gain that awareness, to become empowered in our daily lives, and how we could finally become the one who's making that decision instead of subconscious mind make that decision for us. I want to be today a little more personal. I'm going to share some personal information about myself. Not that I haven't till now, because I'm an open book, as you all know. Since I totally accepted myself the way I am, with all my flaws and everything else, um, the reason I'm sharing some of my life story with you guys is to, number one, connect with you. Secondly, is to know where I'm coming from. And basically, where you really understand that nobody is a perfect human being, there's no such a thing as being perfect, makes that a little bit easier for ourselves. So, basically, from the time that I left Iran at age 17, the way everyone else saw me was that I was somebody living in a bubble. So they were always thinking, how is she going to survive? She's going to be a disaster. I mean, she has no care for life or anything else. After age 17, when I moved out, there was really a new chapter that started in my life. It was from that point of time that I start to kind of know that I'm alone, I'm on my own. There is no one to make a decision for me. I had full control over my decisions, the way I'm going to go about my life, and the way I'm going to design my life. And I can tell you, maybe you can say, well, you got lucky because everything that I did somehow turned into being okay and being success for me. Um, but then again, what is success? Because success has different meaning for everyone. Maybe I was able to achieve my goals. Maybe I was able to whatever I thought I could bring it into manifestation, and that would be a great thing. But as a person, I was distressed, I was anxious, and I think I was around age, maybe late, in my late 20s, early 30s. I got diagnosed with OCD, as you all know. And being a perfectionist has a huge light on every areas of my life. And we all know that OCD is an illness that not only we are hurting ourselves, but we are also hurting those who we engage with, right? So now I'm going to bring this into being unconscious. Basically, I was living my life very unconsciously because although I had so much love for humanity, although I meant well, but my approach and the way I was acting out with other people who were involved in my life at the moment, the way I spoke with them, it could come across as being extremely arrogant. Maybe some people thought that she's extremely egoistic. I walked my life around thinking, why are people so ignorant? Why are they so slow? And unconsciously, I was sending out that energy to everyone else to the point that I could disable even people who were very qualified to do what they were doing. It was extremely hard because maybe you watched some of my past lives, but I was telling you that I had a very, not only I had a great imaginations, my mind was constantly making pictures of everything, um, but also the way I was acting out was that I did not understand people. So when I talk to them in a way that this is not so hard, this is not so difficult, why don't you get it? I meant well, but the language that I was using, it was harsh. I did not have any concept for being diplomatic. Diplomacy was a foreign concept to me. And whatever I thought came right through, I sent it out, and I became very inconsiderate about other people's emotion and how they felt and how the information that I'm giving them, although it could be extremely beneficial and valuable to them, but the way I delivered it, because it was so right to the point and it was sort of harsh, people took being hurt instead of sitting back and saying, wow, this information is really valuable. I can use it. So later on, it took me many years to little by little get access to my subconscious mind. I want to tell you this today. Maybe this is encouraging for you guys to know from where I came from. Someone who had ADHD, someone who had OCD, someone who has an extremely active mind, to reach a point today that I got access to many different parts of my subconscious mind. And I think what is really helpful today is that I am able now to slow down myself before I'm giving out some information, to see how that information could be delivered in the best way that would be useful for others to use. And even in my daily activities, before I'm doing something, I can slow down myself to know why I am saying this and how is going to be received by the receiver. So coming back to our topics today, what if you knew what were the hidden agendas of your subconscious mind? In order for you to do that, number one, you need to really slow down. Step one, slow down. Step two, which is one of the hardest things for us to do, is how much can we keep ourselves empty? How can we keep this container empty without adding everything from the past? Are you guys with me? Say yes or no. How powerful you could be if you could slow down yourselves, and if you could slow down the process of your delivery, meaning before you speak, before you act, to analyze the whole situation and know where is that coming from. Let me give you an example so you really get where I'm coming from. Imagine that I'm going to tell you, have you put on, it looks like you have put on weights, right? If you slow down that process and say, where is this coming from? Why am I saying this? And what is my intention? And how is this information is going to help or hurt the receiver? For me, someone who's coming from a background of being personal trainer for many, many years, today, with all the information that I have, I can just scan someone's body, but hardly and rarely do I give advice to someone to know that this information, it's not going to help them. Coming back again to that information, when I'm going back to my subconscious mind and ask myself, where is this coming from? Then I realize the reason I'm seeing this, that someone has put on weight, has a direct connection to my OCD. From a part of my OCD was in my body. How do I look? Do I look fit? And all of this stuff. So today, instead of when I get to the hidden subconscious mind, knowing and looking at the history of my OCD, a part of it being my weight and the way I look, and also considering, is this information helpful for someone to do anything about it? I realize that maybe this information is not what I want to give out. Instead, when I focus myself into something else, what can be beneficial to this person right now. It could be that I ask them about how are you feeling these days. Then again, when I get back to the hidden agendas, when I ask someone, how do you feel? Because I was also one of those people who didn't allow myself to feel for many years. And the last few years, I have give myself permission to feel and really feeling everything. Now, instead of saying, have you put on weight lately? I ask a smarter, better question. How do you feel now? And by asking this question, the person might tell me, good to ask. These days, I feel very anxious. I feel very stressed out. I don't feel my best, or I feel depressed, or I feel heavy. Now, this will take us to a different direction, right? So, by saying this, whatever am I trying to go is now when I'm taking an action or saying something, I know where it's coming from. And for that, again, I'm going to repeat myself. It's great to be able to have access to our subconscious mind. It's really empowering when we know that what files in our subconscious minds are open, what is active, what apps are active in our subconscious mind. It's very liberating and empowering to know that. So once you know what's in your subconscious mind, right, you now have the choice to act differently, right? Imagine when you have access to your subconscious mind. Now, that might raise another question. How would I get access to my subconscious mind? That would be a great question, right? How would we get access to our subconscious mind? For me, I think I'm coming back again to that emptiness, to that space of being empty. Now you're going to ask me, how do I get to that emptiness? That's even a better question. You guys know that I have two practices. These are daily practices that I constantly say, this practices has to be done 24 hours every second of the day. Meaning, I have to be constantly conscious about the thoughts, the thinking machine, right? So the more you do this practice, and I gave you an example, this came up in one of my sessions a couple of weeks ago, that I was going through this process. And I told this person, I said, for the next month, I want you to change your profession. For the next month, I want you to constantly remember that you have a golden scissor in your hand. And I want you to imagine that your role in this life is to be a gardener. By being a gardener and having this magical golden scissor in your hand, I want you, without any judgment, just cut out everything that you see. It doesn't matter if it's a beautiful flower, if it's a dead flower, if it's a weed. I do not care. The practice is for you to trim and to cut anything that shows up. This is even before any judgment takes place, as is this a good thing to think about, or is this a bad thing? This is the only way that I know of by now, that by constantly cutting out the thoughts, eventually you would reach a space of emptiness. This is a lifetime practice. This is not meditation, or yet I can say it's a meditation that's taking place 24 hours a day. The second practice is as soon as you wake up, it's morning, your eyes open, you realize that you're awake. The first thing that you do is, oh, last night I was dreaming. In my dream, my mind took me everywhere. There was no boundary, there were no restriction. I keep repeatedly saying that. Your dead daughter was alive. In 1 second, you were in Paris. In the next second, you were in Zaire, right? So in your dream, there are no restrictions, there are no boundaries. Saying it in a different way, there is no time and space. So in the morning, when you wake up, you realize that last night you were dreaming and your mind took you everywhere. Is there any part of your dream, as you remember it, was in your control? Could you change anything in your dream? The answer to that is no, right? So you know that you have absolutely no control over your dream unless you're lucid dreaming, and before you're dreaming, you have an intention of what you're going to do in your dreams, what are you after, and you set your intention that you be aware of your daydreaming, right? And that takes a lot of practice by itself. Now, the second practice will be that the minute you wake up, you're going to know that last night you were dreaming, you had no control. From this moment on, if you're not aware 24 hours every second, your mind is going to take you to a different dream. That means you are going to go back to sleep. You're going to be hypnotized by your mind. Are you all with me? Yes or no? Okay. So, to practice thought cut silence, number one. These two practices are not whenever you remember. These two practices are being aware 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Now, I have asked you guys many times, and tell me, have you guys put a notification on your phone that every at least 2 minutes for the beginning of doing this practice, your phone is going to notify you thought cut silence? Have you done that? Very good, Mary. Yes or no? Write down thought cut silence and put it on a sticker, buy loads of stickers and stick it everywhere, on your laptop, on your mirror, on your refrigerator, everywhere. Put thought cut silence, that everywhere that you look is going to give you a reminder that you have to do this practice, otherwise you forget. The second practice, first thing in the morning, I wake up. The first thing I remember, last night I was dreaming. Right now, if I'm not aware every second to separate myself from the mind ego, my mind will take me into another dream, right? So this is like, from now on, imagine in your mind's eyes that every second you're going to splash your face with cold water, because if you don't, you're going to fall back to sleep. Give yourself this gift and do this practice daily. That every second, imagine that you have your final exam and you only have a very short time to do your study. You don't have time to go to sleep. You cannot waste even a second. Therefore, every few seconds, you're going to splash yourself with cold water to stay awake, or keep telling yourself this mantra: I am awake. I am awake. I am awake. Write down on your wrist, I am staying awake, or I choose to be awake. I am awake. I choose to be awake. And keep telling this mantra, run this mantra. I am awake. I choose to be awake. Got it? Okay. So all these practices is to give yourself that empty space that you need. That empty space is the inner world, right? And all you need, it doesn't matter how much dilemmas, stories, whatever it is, whatever chaos is going on in your lives, don't let that be the excuse not to do these practices. It is actually at this time when you are, like, in a way we can say, the dark night of the soul, when your boyfriend breaks up with you, when your husband said, I'm filing for divorce, when your boss tell you, I'm sorry, I have to let you go. It is in these critical times of suffering, misery, the chaos that's going on in your life, that these two practice becomes crucial, more important than ever before. On the contrary, I see often people tell me, oh, I was doing really good. I was on these practices until this happens. And you and I know, we are intelligent to know that life is full of surprises. In other words, things are constantly happening. And I told Sarah the other day, because she's very sarcastic, she laughs about me being on my practices of thought cut silence. She says, "Are you doing your practices?" I said, "Yes, I am. Otherwise, if I wasn't, I wouldn't kill everybody." I'm going to tell you a personal story again. Most of you don't know, but at age 17, I told you, when I came here, while the plane was taking off from Iran, I was thinking to myself, giving myself a map about where I want to go, and I was giving myself a lot of promises. One of the most promises that I stick to up to today, and I'm extremely proud of that, is that I said to myself, I promised myself that I would never ever get financially to put myself in a situation that I need getting money from someone else. I'm going to be always financially stable. And I kept it up to today, right? But so because I have to do everything on my own, I had to work to make money, and I had to continue further education. I was living on a very tight schedule. And during those times, as I was going to college and then later on going to university or whatever I was doing, I was constantly aware of the fact that things might not seem as though they are in my control, but I always thought, if I be dedicated to every task that I'm doing and put my 100% in it, I'm going to gain success. Today, I understand that I was wrong. And this recipe, knowing the human design, we know it doesn't work out for everybody, but that was what I was thinking at the time. So the first thing I did, I started working in a restaurant. In a matter of short time, I managed to become the manager of the restaurant, and I transformed that restaurant in a matter of 2 years or so. The other part is that for another short period of my time, I got myself licensed as a cosmetologist and worked as a cosmetologist. And while I was doing that, I was actually looking back at that time. I see that I was acting really badly with everybody. What it was at the moment, my act and my behavior was coming from a lot of anger that it took me many, 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 many years till I got access to my subconscious mind, that all of that anger was coming from the time that I lost my father. The death of my father was a major, major event in my life. And that created an anger within me that I was fighting life. And I never heard the concept of surrender to life at the moment. But to make the long story short, while I was doing that, I was very successful. Why? Because I told you guys, being a projector, as a as my human design chart state, at that moment I was one of the greatest, one of the best in my job. And it happened that again, in a very short period of time, there were two assistants that started working for me. Even it got to the point that the owner of the shop has to help me out because I was so, like, every morning when I would go there, I looked at the daily schedule, and because they knew how fast I was, they would book me every 20 minutes. And it was like I was look at the day, and it was like filled up, 20-second highlights, cuts, color, da 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 da. And I was extremely rude and obnoxious to people. And today, when I'm looking back and I'm thinking, my boss told me a few times too, he asked me that question. He said, I am really wondering, you are so rude and arrogant. Why all these people want to be with you? They want you to do their hair. Today, I find out something, guys. And I realized that although I was very short and very rude, I had this as a projector to really get in to people, to get into to connect with their soul. And even though I came as somebody who was very self-centered and arrogant, they would open up their heart and tell me about their life stories, their relationships, their whatever. So I didn't do that work for a long time. But then again, today, as I'm looking back, I am thinking, if at that moment I was aware of my hidden subconscious mind, I was coming up from an anger. I had an anger issue. Some people called me, I was very hot tempered. I was hot blooded. But until when I realized the way I'm interacting with others, where I'm coming from, the root of this issue is connected to the death of my father. And until I made peace with that event, with that abandonment issue, nothing really changed. So today, I am someone who's coming from a place that, looking back, I think I really lived my life unconsciously because I didn't have access to the subconscious mind. Now, today, after many, many years, somebody who had really overactive mind is able to really quiet down the mind. I am someone today that I can choose to be in silence and stay in silence. Okay? Maro, thank you for buying so many badges. I think you're the one who's just. Maro is the one who's supporting the English channel, I think. Yes. Okay. So let's get back to the topic today. Let's go through the practices that you need to do daily to gain access to your hidden subconscious beliefs or agendas. Number one, can you guys type it in for me? Number one is what? Can you tell me? Number one is to slow down. Number two is to gain or get access to the emptiness. The way, the tools that help you get access to your inner world or that empty field is the two practices. Number one, thought, cut, silence. Number two, from the minute I wake up, I realize last night I was dreaming. From now on, every second, I have to be aware of the mind ego, and by separating myself from the mind ego, I can add another practice to that, which was what? That you constantly imagine you having a golden scissor in your hand, and for the next month or so, you are the gardener. Anything that shows up in your projection, you just gonna cut it. Sometimes people ask me, what about the positive thoughts? And I say, no, because in order for you to go through that judgment, is it positive or negative? You're still thinking. So, no, from the first word, from the first thing that shows up, whether it's the red roses, whether it's weed, whether it's whatever flowers or whatever you see, your role is just to cut. Your mind starts by saying, yesterday, cut. Do you know, cut. Oh my God, cut. So please do these two practices and see how the quality of your life changes. This is fundamental. This really helps, guys. Okay? So, when you quiet down yourself and you create that empty space, in that empty space, is there any room for your past? Is it when I was born, when I was 2 years old, when I got divorced, when I got abused? Is there anything from the past in that emptiness? No, right? Is there any worries about the future? How's the economy going to go? Am I going to lose my job? Am I going to find another job? Am I going to find a partner? Is there anything in there? No. So you realize that all the thinking is happening because most of them is either in the past or is in the future. So I told you guys repeatedly, the mind and ego are constantly stealing this moment from you. And this moment is precious. This moment is the only moment that you can do something, right? But the mind and ego is constantly stealing it by taking you to the past, taking you to the future. Okay? I'm going to close this. You're welcome, honey. I'm going to close this live, guys. Till next week, please do these practices. Write a comment and tell me, how often did you manage to do this practice? By next week, I want to know if all of you set up the notification on your phone to tell you every 2 minutes, give you a reminder of thought, cut, silence. By next week, I want to know, is your house, your office, your working places, all is written thought, cut, silence on the sticker or not? Okay? Love you all. Have a wonderful weekend. And I see you guys next week. Don't forget, as usual, to save, like, and share these lives so other people can benefit from that. I love you, and I see you all next week. Bye bye, and have a beautiful